far ahead of China. It's not even a contest.
The White House recently imposed 25% tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Chinese imports. That interview took place in Normandy, France, where President Trump paid tribute to the heroes who fought on D-Day 75 years ago. Tariffs on Mexican imports are still set to take effect on Monday, but Vice President Mike Pence says the U.S. is encouraged by Mexico's latest proposals to step up efforts to halt illegal immigration and avert the tariffs. The vice president also urging Democrats to work with the administration.
The time has come for Congress to act and stand with this president to end the crisis of illegal immigration.
Pence says the president is going to stand firm until what he sees as an immigration crisis is resolved. A military vehicle flips at the United States Military Academy at West Point, killing one cadet and injuring nearly 24 others.
West Point superintendent says one of his cadets died, 19 others hurt, and 2 U.S. Army soldiers were injured when their 5-ton truck rolled over while driving to land navigation training.
Today was a tragic day for the West Point community in our United States Army.
Lieutenant General Darrell Williams is West Point's top officer and spoke from the crash site roughly 2 miles from West Point's main campus, roughly 60 miles north of New York City. All the cadets in the truck were seniors, or firsties as they're called at West Point. The name of the cadet killed will be released Friday following next of kin notifications. At the Pentagon, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
The St. Louis Blues are 1 win away from their first Stanley Cup championship. St. Louis beat Boston 2-1 and now lead the series 3-2. Game 6 is Sunday night. This is Fox News.
It's important to have claims process that works for you. At Guahan Insurance Services, we make things simple and convenient. Same door you walk in to purchase your insurance is the same door you open to file your claim. We can't pretend that the car insurance claims process is fun, but we can promise a hassle-free and speedy recovery without any runarounds. For your home, auto, and business insurance, visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center on Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or give us a call at 475-1162 or text 929-SAVE. That's 929-7283.
Hey, welcome to this Subway ad for the new club collection. How do you want it?
I'll take a book club.
Absolutely.
So, last week we sunk our teeth into Subway's meaty new release, the Steak Club.
I didn't finish it yet.
Oh, not again, Sandra. This week, it's the new Southwest Chicken Club, also by Subway. No spoilers, but there's a tasty twist.
Jalapeno cheddar bread and guacamole?
Sandra, get out. Subway, make it what you want.
Good ending.
Limited time only at participating restaurants.
A Utah man accused of making thousands of threatening calls to members of Congress has been arrested.
Scott Brian Haven, over 3 years, made more than 2,000 calls saying Democrats on Capitol Hill were threatening the president. He was arrested this past Tuesday and charged with interstate transmission of threats to injure. A day later, a judge ordered him held in custody as a danger to the community. His calls targeted both senators and representatives, but the names of those lawmakers were not released. According to records, Haven has no prior criminal history. He will appear in court next week. If he's tried and found guilty, he could face 5 years in prison. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
California high school students who lost their homes in a wildfire are preparing for graduation. About 220 students are scheduled to graduate from Paradise High School. About 900 of the school's 980 students lost their homes in a devastating wildfire last November. Students have been meeting at a makeshift school in an office building. Apple makes headlines for another privacy power play.
Released design guidelines suggest Apple is asking app developers to put its Sign In with Apple button above its competitors, Facebook and Google's. The company making waves introducing the login feature, which focuses on user privacy. While many choose to sign in to various apps using their Google or Facebook accounts to save time, some login buttons can send data back to these companies about the user's app habits. Apple says its feature will not. Also unveiling a tool to randomly generate an email address for a user to sign in with instead of giving out a real one. The move being called a privacy challenge to rivals. Kristen Goodwin, Fox News.
Walmart grocery delivery is now going one step further. The company is offering to have one of its employees deliver fresh groceries and put them in your refrigerator when you're not home. The service will begin this fall in 3 cities: Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Missouri, and Vero Beach, Florida. I'm Richard Jordan, and this is Fox News.
In illness and in wellness, Calvo's Select Care is health care that is there for you. That's why over 80% of the Guam medical community places their trust and insures with us. We offer our members wellness and fitness programs for a healthier lifestyle and provide a comprehensive medical network on and off island to help members from unexpected illnesses. Contact Calvo's Select Care today for more information.
Ready to buy real estate on Guam? Congratulations! But what now? There are so many questions, so many things to do. Where do you start? The best place to start is to call Century 21 Commonwealth Realty, Guam's biggest name in real estate. They aren't the best because they're the biggest. They're the biggest because they're the best. Trust the name. Find out why. Call Century 21 Commonwealth Realty today. 888-2121. Trust the best.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, even if it's an aggravation to former President Barack Obama. Still can't infringe. Yesterday, I read an article about Barack Obama and a speech that he made in Brazil, talking about the United States laws and that our laws here in the United States don't make any sense because according to Barack Obama, anybody could own any gun anytime he wanted for any reason at all. And I have a piece here that unfortunately I didn't bring with me where PolitiFact found that this was mostly not correct, and that, let me see if I got it here. Yeah, I do have it. And here's the title of the article, Even PolitiFact. It's one of those things like Snopes, et cetera, that's supposed to measure the truthfulness of a politician's statement. And it's entitled, Even PolitiFact Won't Cover for Obama's Anti-Gun Nonsense. Just last week, former President Barack Obama spouted a pile of nonsense about guns. Obama's done that for years, of course. This time, he claimed anyone could get a gun at any time. It was a blatant lie. Now, I know that stretches the credulity of some people who are probably not regular members of our international radio listening audience, but to think that former President Obama could say something that's not completely true, I know that's quite a leap of faith. Going on, it was so blatant that even left-leaning PolitiFact refused to provide any real cover for the former president. Quote, anybody can buy any weapon at any time. No, not anybody. Federal law bans many kinds of people from buying weapons. A list by the U.S. Bureau of ATF includes anyone convicted in any court and sentenced to a year or more in prison, anyone with a dishonorable military discharge, anyone convicted of domestic violence or subject to a court order against harassing or threatening an intimate partner, anyone addicted to a controlled drug or has been committed to a mental institution. An article in the Federalist, a conservative website, noted that people under 21 years of age may not purchase handguns from a gun dealer, and those under 18 can't buy rifles or shotguns. And then here's this, Obama's statement, they can buy machine guns. This is highly inaccurate. A machine gun is a fully automatic weapon, meaning one simple motion to squeeze the trigger releases multiple rounds. Under federal law, no one can own or sell a machine gun with one exception. Ones owned before May 19, 1986, which are, and I hate this word, which are grandfathered in. You know I hate that, and maybe if I have time, I'll tell you why you should never use that term. And as UCLA law professor Adam Winkler told us, any sale or transfer of an old machine gun requires a special background and a special license. Winkler called Obama's sweeping language on this absurd. Taking the elements of his statement together, we rate this claim mostly false. Initially, we did not hear from Obama's office, but after publication, Obama spokesman Eric Schultz sent us links to articles, including one from PolitiFact, that described how people circumvent gun laws. But a plain reading of Obama's words by us and by firearms legal specialists we reached is that he's describing current laws, not whether people were breaking them. Our rating remains mostly false. That's what PolitiFact says. So to say that, it's kind of like this. You know, America has some really strange banking laws because anybody can walk into a bank at any time and take as much money as he wants, just for the asking. Well, no, that's not the way it works at all. Not even close. However, if you are a bank robber and you walk into a bank with a gun or a knife or some explosives or a scary note, then maybe you could. But that doesn't mean that's what American banking laws are. And that's kind of what Obama's spokesman was trying to put across to PolitiFact. Now, PolitiFact found every possible way it could support Obama's assertion. It used every trick it could muster to try and pop up the president's claim, and it's still mostly false. Okay. Obama's claim made a claim so ridiculous, even Obama apologists at PolitiFact couldn't back it up. Okay, so that's kind of the Second Amendment for today. And I guess the one thing that Obama hasn't said yet, probably hasn't gotten around to it, would be something along the lines, if you like your Second Amendment, you can keep your Second Amendment. We've heard those kinds of lies before. I mean, excuse me, not lies, lines before from our former president, Barack Obama. Okay, so much for the Second Amendment. Real Joe Cruz, let's go from here right straight to the Zemi Ikutni part of the show. So we start out with the Daily News, and as you know, I go through the paper, the editorials in the papers. I use my blue pen. I'm looking for good grammatical and English usage. If I find it, I'll let you. If I find it's missing, I'll let you know. I try to evaluate the editorials, and I will give the coveted blue star to the better of the two editorials. Sometimes that means nobody gets a blue star. This is what I call the Mark corollary to the blue star rule. Mark called me one time and told me sometimes I reach a little bit too hard to try to award the blue star when neither editorial really makes the mark. So that's the Mark corollary. Today, the Daily News, ball was dropped. We've been talking a lot about balls here lately, like, you know, the CCU playing hide the ball with their papers. Yeah. Well, this is about the Waterworks Authority. So, of course, if it's about the Waterworks Authority, you know who I'm expecting to be mentioned quite prominently in any article about the Waterworks Authority. You know who that would be, Real Joe Cruz? Who would that be?
Joey.
Well, Joey, of course, but second choice, not CCU, but Waterworks.
Oh, Waterworks.
Yeah. General Counsel. Kelly Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say his name because I don't want to get sued, sir. I don't have an attorney right now.
Well, yeah, I suppose. You're pretty close to one, but yeah, you probably couldn't afford my exorbitant fees.
No, you're
real
way
joker.
too expensive, sir.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so here's how it goes. Wrong for ratepayers to cover costs of hydrants. The Guam Waterworks Authority has been replacing fire hydrants throughout the island for the past several years and continues to do so. Heidi Ballendorf, the agency's public information officer, said Waterworks has recently placed 160 fire hydrants and is finalizing a contract for another 65 more replacements. According to 2017 Citizen-Centric report, there are about 3,814 fire hydrants around the island. This sounds like something that perhaps the organization called GAIN might have been lobbying for. You know, what is it? Guam Animals in Need? Yeah, and they're really looking out for dogs. So if you want to have happy dogs, you got to have plenty of fire hydrants around, right? Yeah. This is a good thing, especially when the Guam Fire Department having to respond to a slew of fires in the dry season. It's critical for the safety of the community to have fire hydrants that work. Firefighter Kevin Riley, GFD spokesman, said hydrants are essential for the delivery of water during fires. Oh, I'd have never guessed that in a million years. Especially in large-scale structural fires and wildfires. Several years ago, the government of Guam owed Waterworks more than $6.5 million for fire hydrants, according to Consolidated Commission on Utilities Chairman Joseph Duenas. The commission and Waterworks wrote off the debt. Yeah. So what that means is that in this fund that was put together to install and maintain fire hydrants, the Kathy Kakigi phenomenon reared its ugly head. You remember the Kathy Kakigi kerfuffle when Kathy had to explain why she took money for land survey from the Chamorro Land Trust Commission and put it in the general fund. And her response to the question was a question right back. Which law do you want me to break? Yeah. So it must have been one of those. Well, you know, we know you got that $66.5 million there for fire hydrants, but we need it for payroll, so we're going to take it. But we'll pay you back. Don't worry. We'll pay you back. And then this is what the write-off means. Later on, the Director of Administration says to the people in charge of Waterworks, you know, we aren't going to be able to pay that money back, so let's just take it off the books. Let's just cancel the obligation from the general fund to Waterworks. And according to this, the Consolidated Commission on Utilities agreed with it. Yeah. The government of Guam is supposed to pay for replacing fire hydrants, but never seemed to have the funding, Joey Duenas said. A few years later, the Public Utilities Commission voted to include, as a part of GWA rates, funding to help pay for and maintain fire hydrants. Duenas said Waterworks got a little bit of rate increase, which the agency didn't ask for it. You can't blame Joey on this one, which the agency didn't ask for. So, okay, Joey's home free on this one to cover the cost because it's in the public interest to ensure funding for working fire hydrants. Well, okay, so the Public Utility Agency Commission, now they took a little harder line on the 911 funds, didn't they? they said, hey, you guys that took that 911 money, you got to pay it back. Don't give me any of this write it off stuff. We're not going to increase the charge on telephone bills because you took the money. So apparently the Public Utilities Commission has developed a little bit more teeth since they wrote off the $6.5 million. The community does need to have an adequate number of working fire hydrants throughout the island, but shame on elected officials and the government of Guam for failing to do with the money with money already collected from taxpayers. Shame on them. Wow, I haven't even done that. I haven't even, in all of this conversation and argument and hard feelings back and forth dealing with the CCU and sunshine law requests and the open, I never ever said, shame on you. Yeah, but here's the Daily News right here. I guess they got tired of not getting the Blue Star because their editorials weren't punchy enough. Maybe I should maybe it's shame on me. Maybe I should take the blame. It's easy to say that public safety is a priority, but if it truly was, keeping fire hydrants in good working order and replaced when needed would be paid for, and not with an increase to water rates shouldered by waterworks customers. How much were rates increased to pay for hydrants? How much money has waterworks collected as a result? When will the Daily News be sending its sunshine law request to find out? And when will GovGuam do its job and pay for fire hydrants so the rate increase can be rolled back? Well, you guys actually came out and said something this time, Daily News. But I kind of got to go in here, since this is about the CCU, I got to make a couple of comments. I wonder if Joey would have to have a judge tell him to take action with respect to these rates and things like that. He seems to have that particular desire to not make decisions himself. I want a judge to tell me to do that. And there's a word for that. I've used this word before, but it's going to become a part of the regular Tall Tales conversation. Krytarchy. K-R-Y-T-A-R-K-Y. Krytarchy. And it means rule by judges, which should be the last thing we're looking for in a society that calls itself a democracy. Democracy. Demo, people, crassy, government by. Democracy. Government by the people. Not krytarchy, government by judges. So that's my first question here. And then my second question is that where was Kelly Clark when all of these things happened? Because I got an email. I sent out a From Bob yesterday dealing with Kelly Clark's epiphany. What I would call Kelly Clark's epiphany after the Post ran the story about his suit against me, about his threatening suit against me, for which he had no comment for the original story. Then he submitted a comment, and he said, wow, we're doing $260 million worth of work here, and, the media is covering my, me suing a talk radio guy. And then he said, what did he say? He said, these priorities, right? Ridiculous priorities. So a friend of mine, a guy named Bart Stinson, who a lot of you people out there know, former Daily News reporter, lived here for a long time. His comment back on the From Bob that I sent out was this. Clark seems to have a pretty grandiose view of his role on island. Lawyer to GWA is a pretty good gig, but he appears to think he ought to be the arbiter of the Post's priorities, public discussion on talk radio, and public employees' pay rates. These roles are wisely separated to prevent exactly the kind of opaque plunder at issue. But I can understand the appeal of that kind of synergy to him. Yeah, so anyhow, Joey, no judge has told Joey what to do about this meter, the money for the meters issue, and Kelly Clark hasn't publicly weighed in on it yet. Okay, and then I've got some general advice here for the Daily News again. You know, I've talked so many times about editorial pages, sources of news, and now everybody knows that if you got an iPad or a phone or whatever, you have an abundance of news sources about national, international, whatever kind of news, even some local news. But the one place where local newspapers have the edge is with their editorial pages. If they write editorials about what's going on in the community in which their paper is sold. And the Daily News does this once in a while. Occasionally they do it. But they run an awful lot of stuff from USA Today, from Gannett. So I have an article that appeared on a website called Right Wisconsin. And you could figure out what the word right means in this particular website title. And I still follow politics back in Wisconsin. I got really interested during the time of Scott Walker, when Scott Walker took a pretty dark blue state and turned it red. And there is a pretty sound argument that Scott Walker and his political acumen and the way he turned Wisconsin red had an awful lot to do with the election of Donald Trump as president of the United States. So I've been kind of following Wisconsin politics, kind of like a laboratory, to see how a state over there in flyover country deals with its own politics. And here's something from Right Wisconsin. It's a really good website telling you about Wisconsin politics. Guess from which side. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, the Milwaukee branch of the Gannett Empire, is reporting on Foxconn's awarding contracts to Wisconsin companies with parent companies outside our state border. Whoa. Rather than celebrate the creation of jobs for Wisconsin, the Journal-Sentinel is lamenting the jobs going to, quote, out-of-state companies. Foxconn announced a $13 million contracts to 3 firms it described as outstanding Wisconsin-based companies. One of the firms, however, has headquarters in Connecticut, while another is part of a 44,000-employee global company headquartered in the UK. The contracts announced Wednesday are for work on foundations of the display panel plant Foxconn has said it will build in Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin. The contracts represent the first awards for vertical construction of the building. Foxconn said the contracts are going to C.D. Smith Construction of Fond du Lac, Otis Elevator of Milwaukee, and PSI Intertech of Waukesha. We're proud to be delivering our Wisconsin First commitment by awarding these contracts to outstanding Wisconsin-based companies, the company said in its announcement. Later in the story, the Journal-Sentinel acknowledges that Foxconn is complying with the terms of the contract with the state by choosing vendors that have presence in Wisconsin for at least a year and pay taxes to Wisconsin. Quote, under that definition, it appears that companies such as Home Depot, headquartered in Atlanta, McDonald's, headquartered in Chicago, could be considered Wisconsin-based. Well, the Journal-Sentinel should know from experience what constitutes an out-of-state company. Yeah, the Journal-Sentinel's a Gannett paper. The Journal Sentinel should know from experience what constitutes an out-of-state company, as their increasingly empty building will attest. The Milwaukee Journal Sentinel is not really a, quote, Milwaukee newspaper. The layout of the Gannett newspaper is done somewhere else and looks like every other Gannett newspaper, sometimes with the same headlines. And, of course, the parent company is located in McLean, Virginia, not Wisconsin. We're surprised the Journal Sentinel didn't include themselves in their fun. Hypothetical list of possible vendors from out of state. But that would make the newspaper a company that is adding jobs. And we know that's not happening. So apparently the Gannett approach to journalism meets a little bit of disfavor in the Badger State as well as right here on Guam. Okay, so much for the Journal. So much for the Journal. So much for Gannett. The Daily News. Next, we'll go to Post right after this short break.
We have some really great home loan programs, but did you know we have great business loans too? Every day we're working with companies to purchase equipment, to buy or build properties, or make tenant improvements. We offer letters of credit, working capital, and term loans, and we make all of our credit decisions here. Commercial loans, commercial banking from Bank Pacific.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Viva Bank Pacific.
Hey, it's Mom. Somebody forgot to thaw the chicken, so meet us at Chili's for 2 for $25. Oh, and congratulate your sister for making the basketball team. She's thrilled. Love you. See you at Chili's.
Enjoy 2 full meal combos for $25. An appetizer, 2 mouth-watering entrees like our crispy chicken breast, smoked barbecue quarter leg, or smoked jalapeno cheddar sausage. Served with corn on the cob and french fries. 2 bold combos for $25. A full-on meal deal available nightly for a limited time. Together, we Chili's.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
I just took a peek at the Facebook comments here, and I want to say hello, Charlotte Gentipanen, who's watching from Washington State. Good call, Charlotte. Time well spent back there in Washington State. And here's another one. Here's another comment. Howdy, Bob, Real Joe Cruz, and International Tall Tales Truth Posse. When I woke up this morning, my first thought was, quote, only 10 more hours until Tall Tales. I imagine a lot of folks out there in our international radio listening audience feel the same way. And I suppose it would be if you felt like sleeping in, it would be a really good excuse. Yeah, I wanted to sleep late so I wouldn't have to wait so long after I woke up for 4 o'clock to come around for the beginning of Tall Tales. Okay, so then we've got the Post. Public leaders need to listen to what the community is saying, or at least try. More and more people are questioning the safety of their families and property. Families are posting cameras on their homes and building fences around the yards to protect themselves from thieves or worse. Anyone in a neighborhood watch chat group can see that group members, residents of those communities, are on hyper alert. In some ways, this is great because we're all taking precautions and working together as a community to protect ourselves. We may not be our brother's keepers, but we certainly have their backs. The home cameras and even cell phones capturing culprits in digitized video have helped police officers nab some of these guys who threaten the peace and safety we're working to build within our communities. But this comes at a price. There is a general distrust for anyone outside of the network we created. A girl and her mother selling Girl Scout cookies or missionaries walking around to share their love of the gospel are almost instantly reported on the chat, even if they're not wearing anything that very clearly marks their intent. Immediately, a picture of them in their car is posted on the chat, and pretty soon all of the neighborhood watch chats have the photos. On some level, we feel it, the sadness that we can no longer be a friendly and open community. We've seen the comments on Facebook of people wishing we could go back to the times when kids could play in their yards or even in their streets without fear because cars are driving too fast, or God forbid, one of the children is taken. So when the island's elected leaders, from the governor to the mayors, say that a machete attack in the middle of the day on a busy street is blown out of proportion. Who said that, Real Joe Cruz? And you don't remember, huh? I'll give you a hint. The first letter of her title is G. Yeah, it was Governor Lou Leon Guerrero. This was blown out of proportion.
Yeah, exaggerated.
Yeah, exaggerated was Melissa Savares.
That's right.
Yeah, the mayor of Dedido. So they didn't actually use the F word, but they were pretty much trying to say, hey, this is fake news. Yeah. So when our elected leaders, from the governor to the mayor, say that a machete attack in the middle of the day on a busy street is blown out of proportion, it angers the people who depend on them and elected them to ensure our island's safety. Yeah. And as a few dozen commenters on social media have said, their words have us questioning their ability to support the public safety that we are all trying to build. Well, I couldn't agree more. When the news of the machete attacks became apparent, this was a very good time. This was a golden opportunity for our new governor to show that she's a leader. Come out, in a relatively short period of time, addressing the people, saying, this is the problem as I see it, and this is what I'm going to do about it. I'm stationing a police officer down on University Drive, which seems to be a trouble spot. And my chief of police is looking at other similar type places. And we're going to adopt the Rudy Giuliani broken windows approach to policing. If we see people engaged in minor violations, we're going to grab them. And anybody that we find wandering around committing misbehavior who's got a warrant out for him, he's going away. I've asked the chief of police to put certain patrols that I will not describe. I'm not going to tip anybody off. I've asked him to double those patrols, and I've authorized as much overtime as he needs to accomplish that. I've also asked some of the other law enforcement agencies to work with the chief to augment his force by detailing police officers from their organizations to the chief. I am going to sit down with the general counsel from the FSM at 10 o'clock this morning, and I'm going to inform her that that we are depending on the leaders of her nation to take definite action with respect to those who come to Guam as habitual residents, to make sure that we are not just a haven for troublemakers that they don't want at home. And, I suppose there are a few other things that the governor could say to show that she's a leader. But what did the governor do? Well, I'm going to call a meeting, and we're going to have village meetings, and we'll all hold hands and we'll sing songs and we'll repeat the word anathematic over and over again. And actually, that's enough because this was all blown out of proportion. Yeah. And another item added to the list, I've asked all merchants to stop selling machetes temporarily. Leadership. That's what we're looking for from a governor. Leadership. When I get into Lou LG versus the unwoke, instead of leadership, I think it's pretty clear what we're getting here. And I'll get into that when I get to that part of the card. So, yeah, pretty good. It was pretty close here this time between the Daily News and the Post. But the Daily News, for once, actually wrote a real editorial. The Post gets it, though, because one of the criteria is whether or not it's topical. In other words, is it something that's on people's minds right now? Is there sort of an urgent dimension to it? And fire hydrants are important, and it's sad to see that, that the waterworks got euchred out of $6.5 million. That's sad, but it doesn't have the same sense of urgency as the situation day before yesterday when a member of our community, just minding her own business, driving near the university, in fact, 7 cars were attacked by machete-wielding folks. Sometimes the sense of urgency is what rules the day, especially when you're looking for a leader. Leaders have to be ready to lead now, not maybe next Tuesday or when it's more convenient or when there isn't something better to do. So today, here it is again, the Post. That makes 114 for the Post to 41 for the Daily News. Congratulations, Guam Daily Post. And I don't expect to be reading about the Guam Daily Post and a website called Right Wisconsin. Okay, so now we get to the card. And here's what I got on the card. I'm going to finish up Tall Tales versus the Right Wing from yesterday. I've got Clint versus the Salary Transparency Act. Lou and Josh versus the Unwoke, which has been on the calendar for a couple days, but I haven't gotten to it. Steve and the real Joe Cruz is favored, Steve Dormer versus Robert Hoffman, because when he was in college, the real Joe Cruz was a Dormer. And then, of course, Bavacqua versus Constitution, Barnes versus the Guam Visitors Bureau, Democrats versus Knights of Columbus. By the way, if I get to that article, you'll see, I know that some of our international radio listening audience are members of the Knights of Columbus, which now, as far as the Democrats in Congress are concerned, is a borderline subversive organization. So if you're ever appointed to a job that requires confirmation by the Senate, any of our members of the Knights of Columbus, you could look forward to questions like this. Are you now, or have you ever been, a member of the Knights of Columbus? Are you aware that any of your close associates and fellow travelers are or have ever been members of the Knights of Columbus? So, I think the Knights of Columbus is a pretty good organization, pancake breakfasts and some civic good works and things like that. But as long as the Dems are in control, if you're looking for a job that requires confirmation by the Senate, well, I don't know. I'll show you when I get to the card what I'm talking about here. Okay, yesterday I started out on this article that I found in salon.com called Are You a Right-Wing Extremist? This quiz may help, and you've got company. So I thought I'd better take the quiz. And as far as are you a right-wing extremist, this quiz will help. Of course, I've been sitting here taking the quiz with my fingers tightly crossed all the way through. You know, because I was talking with a friend of mine from Wisconsin the last time I went back there, who was pretty far over on the left. And he and I have that conversation every time we meet. And he says to me, Bob, what would you be if you weren't a conservative? And I said, I'd be ashamed of myself. So I got my fingers crossed as I take this quiz. Now, yesterday, the first item on the quiz was, here are some warnings. This is a quiz put together by the British Army because the British Army has discovered that it has Nazis in its ranks. Probably some folks that escaped the Allied invasion of D-Day, right? There are Nazis in the British Army, so they've developed this checklist to find out who the right-wing extremists are in the British Army. And here's the first question. These people, here are some of the warnings. These people describe themselves as patriots. Yeah, well, I passed that one. I am a patriot. I'm a very patriotic American. I have been for a long, long time. And I'm going to be a patriot for the rest of my life. So if the appropriate plea here in this judicial challenge is guilty or not, I plead guilty. Yeah, I am a patriot. So I got the first one. Second, refers to political correctness as some left-wing or communist plot. Now, I don't know the name of the person who wrote up this checklist, but they are clearly talking about me. I have no time for political correctness. And I've pointed out in this program more than once that it goes beyond just fun and games. It's a subtle form of behavior modification, and it's a product of neo-Marxism, cultural Marxism, all of the stuff that the guys at the Frankfurt School have put together. If you want to change the thought process of people, change the meaning of the words that they think they know. And you're on the right track. So, yeah, I think that political correctness is indeed some left-wing or communist plot. The next item, describe multicultural towns as, quote, lost. Well, I said yesterday I haven't done that because I never thought of it. But when I saw the 1 hour news magazine report on Seattle and what's going on there, and when I read about what's going on in Los Angeles, I would apply that word at least to those two towns. They're lost. They've lost their direction. They've turned it over to the homeless. And they've turned Seattle, what used to be a beautiful city, according to what I saw, has been turned into a, what did Donald Trump, I guess I can't use Donald Trump's, Donald Trump would refer to them as shucks holes. Yeah. So I'm okay on that one. Looks at opponents as traitors. Well, no, I don't go that far. I think a lot of the folks that have embraced this leftist approach to things are what Vladimir Lenin, who was who took over Russia after the 17 revolution, after they kicked out Alexander Kerensky and the Russian government after the czars were overthrown. Lenin referred to people who don't know why they do it, but repeat the communist propaganda as useful idiots. I'm not going to call anybody an idiot, but there are a lot of people who go along with this leftist line because they think, well, yeah, that applies to me. I'm in a minority group, or I'm right there at intersectionality. So I'm going to go along. These guys are saying the same thing the way I think, so I think they're right. I'm going to go along with it. So there's a lot of that. I don't call them traitors. I think a lot of them are just ill-informed. Use the term Islamofascism. Now I haven't put that one in my vocabulary yet. Of course, Omar and Tlaib have only been in the House of Representatives for what, 5 months now? So I'm sure I'm going to get there. Having had a sufficient exposure to those two Islamists. And I also confess to having used the term feminazi from time to time. Yeah, eat me and Rush. Then next, makes generalizations about Muslims and Jews. Well, I do that, yeah. Muslims and Jews have aversions to have an aversion to pork as a tenet of their religion. Aren't Christians. Muslims aren't Christians. Jews aren't Christians. So I do make these generalizations. And of course, it's okay for folks on the left to make generalizations. And actually, it's a part of life. If you can't make generalizations, your life becomes very difficult and complicated. Next item, have extreme right-wing group stickers or badges on clothing and personal items. Well, I have a cap on the back of my car, pinned to the seat that says USMC on it. I guess that would be a badge of right-wing extremism, right? Make inaccurate generalizations about the left or the government. That's not me. No way. I'll read it again. Make inaccurate generalizations about the left or government. Do I make generalizations about the left? You better Hong Kong believe it. Are they inaccurate? Nope. But of course, in the world of the left, here comes a generalization now, Real Joe Cruz. In the world of the left, anything that is slightly derogatory about the left is obviously inaccurate. So I passed that one. Talk of an impending racial conflict. Wow, already, huh? Okay, well, I'm going to come back and finish this test. And probably going to take us up to the big halftime break, and then, big halftime show, and then I've got Clint versus the Salary Transparency Act, Lou and Josh versus the Unwoke, etc.
Experience the Take Care difference. Take Care members can count on accessing a high-quality, credentialed network of on-island providers, including the convenient one-stop FHP Health Center and Urgent Care, access to an extensive off-island network of providers, and the island's largest offering of free fitness classes and health education programs. You can count on Take Care to deliver comprehensive, accredited insurance coverage and quality health care when and where you need it. Take Care. Our island, your health plan. Learn more at takecareasia.com.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,600 by calling Family Finance in Agutya at 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
Okay, next item. Your right-wing extremists talk of an impending racial conflict or race war. Well, that's not me. Take the race war off the end of it. I'm not talking race war. So let's read it without that word. Talk of an impending racial conflict. Yeah, that's not me because I'm not saying impending. It's already here. It's not coming. We're already there thanks to the identity politics of the left. you know, the victim and villain, the oppressor and the oppressed. So the idea of the left has sold people on the idea that there is an oppressor in our society. It's capitalism. It's white folks. It's white privilege. So get yourself into an identity group based on race or sexual preference or something like that, because you are the oppressed, and you have to group together against the oppressor. And it's kind of all part of the same undertaking, the same cultural Marxism idea, the identity politics, and it works like this. You need to understand presentism and have some grasp on American history. So you go back into history and you find someone who we've all thought was a pretty good dude as far as American history is concerned, a George Washington, a Thomas Jefferson, you know, the founders of our country. And in order to sow this dissatisfaction and cement this group identity idea, you then use the term presentism and you judge those people by today's standards. Well, you know, they are saying that Jefferson, by the way, he was white, Jefferson and Washington were such great leaders and everything and such great Democrats. They had slaves. That's called presentism. You know, we know that. We know better than that. We would never tolerate that, the Democrats are saying. And, of course, they leave out American history before the Civil War, as they say it. We would, and we can't tolerate that. Now, those guys, Jefferson and Washington, et cetera, they were all white. So there are now people that, you know, have to take the blame for those guys because they didn't conform to we now will tell you our appropriate moral standards. Yeah, that's how the identity politics thing works. So since we're in an oppressed minority, the oppressor must roll over and play dead every time we come along with some of our silly demands. So, yeah, talk of an impending racial conflict. I'm not talking of I'm talking about a racial conflict that's already here, and I know exactly why it's here. Using terms like America, you know, I mentioned this the other day. When I was a youngster, we discussed the motto of the Latin motto of the United States, e pluribus unum, from many, one. And we learn in school, you know, America is a melting pot. People came from all over the world to the United States, not because of reasons of religion or race or whatever, but because of an idea. And we formed a new people on the North American continent dedicated to this idea. America is a melting pot. And if you say stuff like that today, hey, that's hate speech. You can't say that. You have to respect the individual differences of the 7,000 different cultural, sexual preference group, gender groups, on and on and on. Of course you won't because you're an oppressor. That's kind of how it works. Right-wing extremists threaten violence when losing an argument. Oh. Yeah, well, I didn't quite finish the test, so I'll finish the test after the big halftime show, and then we'll go on to the rest of the card.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Danger averted. I'm Richard Jordan, Fox News. A man reportedly planning to throw explosives at people at New York's Times Square is under arrest. The suspect, described as a lone wolf, is expected in court today. The New York Daily News reports investigators from the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force learned that he was inquiring about buying grenades. There's no information yet on his age, nationality, or place of residence. U.S. and Mexican officials are making progress in talks to avert import tariffs, but there are no plans to change course yet. President Trump, in an exclusive interview with Fox's Laura Ingraham, says not having congressional support is hampering his efforts.
They hurt my negotiation because I go into the room with the Mexicans. I'm asking them for everything. And by the way, if they don't do it, I'm putting the tariffs on. We're going to make a fortune.
President Trump threatened to impose 5% tariffs on imports unless Mexico does more to stop illegal immigration. The federal government is opening a new facility for migrant children near the U.S.-Mexico border. The Office of Refugee Resettlement is also considering housing children on 3 military bases, adding as many as 3,000 more beds. Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden now says he no longer supports a long-standing congressional ban on using federal health care money to pay for abortions. Biden received widespread criticism for supporting the measure.
Joe Biden in South Carolina last month asked about repealing the Hyde Amendment by a member of the American Civil Liberties Union. Hyde nixes federal funding for abortions unless it's a case of rape, incest, or the life of the mother is in jeopardy. The ACLU tweeted about his rope line exchange using the hashtag #RightsForAll.
Fox's David Spunt. More dangerous flooding across the plains and Midwest. A man in Louisiana died after his car was submerged in a flash flood. In Alton, Illinois, residents there can't seem to catch a break.
We're on day 81, 82 of being underwater. I haven't seen where I parked my car since March 17th.
Oklahoma is also getting slammed with heavy rain. This is Fox News.
We have some really great home loan programs, but did you know we have great business loans too? Every day we're working with companies to purchase equipment, to buy or build properties, or make tenant improvements. We offer letters of credit, working capital, and term loans, and we make all of our credit decisions here. Commercial loans, commercial banking from Bank Pacific.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender, FDIC, Viva Bank Pacific.
Your home is one of the most important investments you'll make in your life. At Nanbo Insurance, you can rest easy knowing that you're covered with reliable and affordable homeowners insurance. Nanbo makes it easy to protect what matters the most so you can enjoy the moments that matter the most. With Nanbo, you can also save big when you bundle up and insure your car, home, motorcycle, or business. Enjoy great savings up to 50%. Visit nanbo.com or call 477-9754 for more details.
Opinion.
The days of the presidential caucus could be numbered as another state moves to primaries.
Only a few states are left that will hold party caucuses to decide who they support for a presidential nomination, as Maine is moving legislation along which would change the process over to a presidential primary vote. In a caucus, voters gather together to discuss and ultimately decide who they want to nominate for president versus a primary vote where voters simply go to the polls. It would cost the state around $120,000 to make the switch, but could save rural caucus goers long drives to get to a regional event, where instead they could just cast a vote in their local town. John Saucier, Fox News.
The Texas couple who died in Fiji last month sent messages to relatives describing their illness. David and Michelle Paul reportedly said in WhatsApp messages to their parents that they were both vomiting and experiencing shortness of breath and hand numbness. The Fiji Health Ministry, the CDC, and the World Health Organization are working to determine what sickness led to the couple's death. Celebrated musician Dr. John passed away.
Dr. John, the Louisiana-born musician who fused jazz, R&B, rock, funk, and blues with a colorful New Orleans voodoo-tinged stage presence, has died at the age of 77. The legendary piano player had struggled with addiction in his early career after hitting the market in 1968 with Gree Gree Gumbo Ya Ya, his publicist says. Dr. John, who was born Malcolm John Revenek, died early Thursday of a heart attack. John had a top 10 hit with Right Place, Wrong Time. He won multiple Grammy Awards and was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
New arrivals at the Phoenix Zoo. 4 big-eyed baby pygmy owls hatched 3 weeks ago and are being raised by 2 pairs of adult owls. The chicks were born through a breeding program. They are now believed to be fewer than 100 in Arizona. I'm Richard Jordan, and this is Fox News.
If you're driving, chances are you'll need gas soon. And by the growl in your tummy, a trip to the grocery store too. But don't just buy gas and groceries without getting double miles. Instead, apply for the new United credit card from First Hawaiian Bank and start earning double miles towards your next trip. Gas, groceries, getaway. With the new United credit card, apply at FHB.com. First Hawaiian Bank, member FDIC. Equal housing lender. Additional terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
Business travel just got easier. Take your data plan with you for only $10 a day to all 17 Data2Go destinations. Never worry about additional data roaming charges when you go where your business needs you. The US, China, Thailand, and so much more. Have the assurance you need to check emails, surf the web, and stay connected. Call 688-2677 today to make sure your account is Data2Go ready. Docomo Pacific. Better together.
So there we were, the big halftime show, the marching band, the drill team, the synchronized card section in the grandstand, the fire eater. It is really quite a show, which, of course, fits in quite nicely with the entire 2 hours here of Tall Tales, which of itself is quite a show. So the big halftime show is clearly in synchronization with the rest of what goes on for this 2 hour period every Monday through Friday from 1600 to 1800. So I'm still working on this test here to see if I'm a right-wing extremist. And I've done pretty well. I think I've come pretty close to getting them all right, or as the left would say, getting them all wrong, right? Now, here's the next one. Threaten violence when losing an argument, although claiming that extreme right-wing groups protest peacefully. Well, I don't know about extreme right-wing groups and how they protest. I've been parts of protests, and I suppose they were, I don't know if you'd call them extreme right-wing or not, but they're very, very peaceful. But let me just answer the first clause of the sentence. Threaten violence when losing an argument. Well, I don't know. You know why I don't know, Real Joe Cruz?
No, sir, I do not know.
You should be able to figure this one out. Let me repeat it. Threaten violence when losing an argument.
It's because you don't lose arguments. Sir.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never lost an argument, so I don't know how I'd react if that ever happened. Okay, and then the last item on the list, become increasingly angry at perceived injustices or threats to so-called national identity. Well, I have a real problem with it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pass this one or not, because you know how I'm always ranting and raving about the national government, right, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. If I could do away with it, we wouldn't be using the term national government. We would go back to a republic, which we had at one time. So that's the test, and I think I got out of 11 of them, I think I did pretty well on 8 or 9 of them. So I think according to this test, I would be a right-wing extremist. Of course, you know, nowadays to be right-wing means that you haven't completely embraced the left's rap on such things as who gets to go to the boys' room and when it's time to pee, what a marriage consists of. I don't know if I ever mentioned this before, but I ran into a guy the other day who finally got woke, and he was telling me, you know, I'm really kind of disappointed in my parents. Yeah, really? Yeah, I found out the real truth about him. You know, my mother, she married a man. But, of course, that was a while ago. I guess, you know, people weren't as enlightened in those days. So I asked her about it. And I said, Mom, you married a man. You didn't marry a woman. And my mom said, no, I never wanted to marry a woman. I married a man. It would never have occurred to me to marry a woman. I married a man. And then I said, well, Mom, did you know about your reproductive rights? Did you know that you owned your own body? Yeah, I guess so. But, you know, you had children. You never had abortions. Were you really, did you really understand reproductive rights? Well, things are a lot different nowadays than when you were born, she told my friend. So no, I don't see taking the life of an unborn child as part of my rights. Now, saying stuff like that, you know, that's really unwoke. But saying stuff like that nowadays, well, that's, you know, you be careful. That's kind of hate speech. So that's what a right-wing extremist would be. I am a right-wing extremist because I believe all of these things, and I haven't swallowed the latest innovations that have been brought to us by the left. And, you know, the old one about old dogs and new tricks, I don't think I ever will swallow those. I think a marriage is a man and a woman, and we should protect the most innocent members of our society, and that would be the unborn. So, yeah, according to those particular lights, I suppose I am a right-wing extremist. I hold these beliefs, and I'm not afraid to talk about them. Okay, so much for the test. Are you a right-wing extremist? This quiz might help, and you've got company. Well, I hope I got company. Okay, next item on the list here, our first item on the card, second item on the card, Senator, this is Clint versus the Salary Transparency Act, and this is from PNC. Senator issues clarification on Salary Act. Now, you remember the Salary Transparency Act that I suggested to Clint. And in fact, I even drafted the language for a bill and sent it to Clint. And the way the bill reads is that no board or commission could grant a salary increase to its key employees until after they had approved by resolution that increase, sent the resolution to the legislature, along with a certificate for the chair of the board or commission saying that they had complied with the open government law in the process of coming up with that raise. 90 days later, the raise would become effective. This is what Clint says. Clint said, Clint, the sponsor of Bill 151-35, clarified that the Salary Transportation Act it doesn't read well. On Monday, Rigel introduced 151-35, which regulates the way boards and commissions make adjustments to appointed employees. The bill has a, quote, lay before provision, which requires that any board or commission first submit late raises for board-appointed employees to the legislature. However, Rigel said this does not mean that the legislature would have the power to approve, disapprove, or amend the raises. He says that would be overstepping the doctrine of separation of powers. Wrong, Clint. Wrong. Clint said the 90-day wait period provision was only included for the sake of transparency, so the public would have more time to review and weigh in on salary increases. Okay, so the way the bill works is the legislature sends the resolution and the certificate. 90 days later, the raises become law. During that 90 days, senators will have a chance to look at the resolution and the raises and ask themselves, is this appropriate? Is it justified? Is it correct? Should we let this go? And if the answer is yes, they don't have to do anything at all. And 90 days later, the raises kick in. If during that 90 days, senators look at it and say, hey, that's way too much for that, $17,000 for Angel Sablon is way too much. We have to do something about that. And during that time, the legislature could have its infamous roundtables, or any one of the 15 senators could introduce a bill that would disapprove the raises by saying that the salary rate included in the resolution submitted on blah, blah, blah shall not take effect, period. That's not separation. That's not a violation of separation of powers, Clint. Legislature has the ability to set salaries. In fact, if it's so desired, when those raises came over, the legislature could introduce a bill. Let's say it's the CCU. The legislature could introduce a bill to abolish the CCU. It's clearly within the legislature's power. And to me, that's the key thing about the bill, that it would have a cautionary aspect on boards and commissions, because when they're dealing with the salary increase, it won't be like they did on November 27. Let's all go back and hide in back here and go into executive session with our lawyers and figure out what we want to do, and probably no one's going to find out about it, and we'll just do it, and probably no one will say boo about it. It won't be that way, because the resolution and certificate will go to the legislature, which will make it public. So the members of boards and commissions are going to say, we got to figure this out, because we have to do something that when it comes time, we can defend what we did. We could say, yes, these are the raises. We included good reasons in our package that we put in the resolution, et cetera. And if anybody else wants to ask questions, here are the answers. And if the legislature is not satisfied, they could nix the raise before it ever kicks in. So that's the effect of Bill 151-35, Clint. Okay, next item on the list is Lou and Josh versus the unwoke. And not being woke myself, but having run across the term, I had to look up the word woke myself to see what it means. And I think I got a definition here somewhere. Well, I thought I did, but I guess I don't. What it means is, with the modern times, putting aside the old ideas and embracing the new and the radical. That's what woke means. So here's a story from PDN. Guam marks Pride Month. It all starts with a safe space. Guam has come a long way in ensuring equality, fairness, and safety for everyone. That's quite a mouthful, given the machete attack the other day, which was, of course, over-exaggerated. And what did the governor say? Exaggerated, and what did she say, Real Joe Cruz? Melissa said exaggerated, and the governor had her own term for it. Yeah, it'll come back to me in a second. Guam has come a long way in ensuring equality, fairness, and safety for everyone, government officials said, as Governor Leon Guerrero signed on Tuesday's Guam First Pride Month proclamation. In June of 2015, Guam became the first U.S. territories to recognize same-sex marriage. Between June 2015 and March this year, Guam saw 362 same-sex marriages that obtained from the Department of Public Health Social Services show. Blown out of proportion. That's what the governor said. Yeah. So this thing about Guam has come a long way in ensuring equality, fairness, and safety for everyone, when the machete attack was just blown out of proportion. Then we go on. Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio, the first elected openly gay lieutenant governor in the nation, also recognized the need to do more to address the high suicide rate and homelessness among young members of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer, or LGBTQ community. I wonder what the word queer means. Do you know what the word queer means, Real Joe Cruz? You know, I trying to be polite. It used to be a part of my vocabulary, but then when I try to appear just a little bit woke, you know, I dropped the word queer from my vocabulary because, you know, I was kind of old, you know, we don't use that word queer anymore. But now I guess it's okay. So would it be okay to say that Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio is the first openly queer lieutenant governor in the country? I don't know. And then we go on to the next page. For those of us that are out and who are serving in elected office or an appointed office, I think the message is that we can let parents know that they should love their children. Now, I'd have never thought of that in a million years, that parents should love their children and stand by them and watch their accomplishment and stand by those accomplishments. What a radical idea, Josh. The homelessness and suicide, he said, are the result of members of the LGBTQ community getting alienated from their own family because of a lack of understanding. The governor signed a proclamation declaring June 2019 LGBTQ Pride Month. So I guess the idea behind the name is that if you are a lesbian, if you are gay, meaning homosexual, if you are bisexual, if you are transgender or queer, you should be proud of that. I guess that's the meaning behind this. It said, in recognition of the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising, which saw members of the community fight back against harassment from police in New York in June of 1969. They fought back against police brutality, and this uprising led to several days of protests and the birth of the modern-day LGBTQ civil rights movement. Well, that was pretty clever, you know, civil rights. The whole civil rights movement really got rolling in the 60s. Folks like Martin Luther King, etc. We had the Civil Rights Act, and it was all about the way black people were treated in the United States. And it had a high degree of success. And then the LGBTQ community said, well, you know, that's us too. We want to get on board with the civil rights movement. I'm not going to do it today, but someday I'll spend a little time talking about what the word civil rights actually means. I've mentioned it before on this program, and that is that, you know, when this guy over here in the lazy boy, the guy I call a smart money, said when I'm talking about, you know, the United States regime in Guam, and that it's a pretty favorable setup for us, he will always say, yeah, but we can't vote for president. And I always point out that your civil rights are a function of pretty much of national law. Your political rights are a function of state law. But I'll come back to that idea later on. Going on, the governor, okay, and it happened in a little bar in New York City called Stonewall. Okay, this is a quote from LGBT Pride founder, director Lasia Casil. Now, they left the Q off this one. It happened in a little bar in New York City called Stonewall. Casil said Guam has been a safe place for everyone and thanked the governor and lieutenant governor for creating this place, safe place for us to exist. Now, this is just amazing, this safe place, in light of the editorials here, in light of the machete attack, and in light of what, you know, is a general perception that people don't feel so safe anymore. So it could be that this is, again, a matter of identity politics. Maybe only people who feel safe are members of the LGBTQ community, not the rest of us out here. But Casil is thanked the governor and lieutenant governor for creating this safe space for us to exist. She said, but there's so much work to do, but it all starts with a safe place. Leanne Guerrero said her administration will continue to work towards providing an environment that is safe. Boy, it's a big S word. Now, this proclamation signing happened before the machete signing incident at UOG. Lieutenant Leanne Guerrero said her administration will continue to work towards providing an environment that is safe, fair, and value equality. I think Guam is really a place that accepts diversity, the governor said. At least 34 members of the Leon Guerrero Tenorio cabinet or their representatives signed the administration's LGBTQ pledge board on Tuesday. And I think I've got the language for that pledge here. Yeah. We, the undersigned, and if you looked at the video, I think the Daily News ran the video. This was recited by the 34 people that signed it. We, the undersigned, strongly believe that all LGBTQ employees should have the freedom to be safe, healthy, and visible. As government leaders, we pledge to use our voice and influence to support visibility, safety, tolerance, love, diversity, and inclusion. Yeah, so the 34 directors or representatives read that out on camera, and then there was a big bulletin board with the rainbow-colored Lottie Stone and the signatures, and some of them were photographed signing it up. So this is something I don't think I've ever seen before. The closest that I've ever seen to it, I don't know if we do this in school anymore or not, but there was a time at the beginning of school in the morning, we would say, I pledge allegiance to the United States of America. You remember that, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah, so, okay, we got the seventh inning stretch coming up. I'll come back to this after the seventh inning stretch. And then I'm going to talk about the Real Joe Cruz time as a dormer.
Hey, it's Mom. Somebody forgot to thaw the chicken, so meet us at Chili's for 2 for $25. Oh, and congratulate your sister for making the basketball team. She's thrilled. Love you. See you at Chili's.
Enjoy 2 full meal combos for $25. An appetizer, 2 mouth-watering entrees like our crispy chicken breast, smoked barbecue quarter leg, or smoked jalapeno cheddar sausage. Served with corn on the cob and french fries. 2 bold combos for $25. A full-on meal deal available nightly for a limited time. Together, we Chili's.
When it comes to power and performance, nothing compares to Dodge. And right now at Cars Plus in Mighty, you can save thousands on many Dodge vehicles in stock during our Dodge Performance Days. Like a new 2019 Grand Caravan SE, save $4,250, or save $6,150 on a new Durango SXT. Looking for more power? Take home a new Charger SXT Plus today for only $37,689, or save over $7,000 on a new Challenger GT. Get more power and performance at Cars Plus in Mighty during Dodge Performance Days. Cars Plus, driven by you.
So the seventh inning stretch coming to you straight from the center field bleachers, Wrigley Field, Chicago. And we're back now. We've got 2 more innings of Tall Tales to go today. And I'm working on Leon Guerrero versus the unwoke. And I consider myself part of the unwoke. Somehow, when I see this this video of 34 directors signing this pledge, which I'll read again. We, the undersigned, strongly believe that all LGBTQ employees should have the freedom to be safe, healthy, and visible. As government leaders, we pledge to use our voice and influence to support visibility, safety, tolerance, love, diversity, and inclusion. So what about the rest of us? Have we established the elite class of the government here, where government directors have to take a special oath? So if I were to attempt to do business with one of these one of these directors, would my membership in that group cause the director, would that put certain obligations on the director that he might not have? I don't get it. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a voter. I'm a citizen. And I'm not going to go into my personal information because it's personal. And I'm not going to advance my personal information as to why I should somehow be seen as special. That's why I'm unwoke. So I'm going on with this article here. At least 34 members of the Leon Guerrero Tenorio cabinet signed the administrator's LGBTQ pledge on Tuesday. Signing the pledge signifies their belief as government leaders, we pledge to use our voice and influence to support visibility, safety, tolerance, love, diversity, and inclusion. Leon Guerrero and Tenorio also signed the pledge. Tenorio recognized Public Auditor Benjamin Cruz, a former Supreme Court Chief Justice and former Speaker of the Legislature, and others for leading the way for the LGBTQ community back in the 1980s, a different time in our island. And a progressive thinker at the time was Ricky Bordallo, who appointed a young lawyer named B.J. Cruz to the bench in 1984. A large number of religious and social groups came out ardently opposed to his nomination, saying that he didn't have the moral standing to be an officer of the court. Tenorio said the legislature at that time, led at that time by Senator Frank Santos. I didn't remember that. I didn't remember that Frank Santos led the legislature at that time. I don't think Frank Santos ever led the legislature. Moved past that and confirmed Cruz. And when he was on the bench, he proved that he was a protector of the family and protector of children because he led the family court for such a long time. Former Governor Gutierrez appointed Cruz to serve as Supreme Court judge. Towards the end of the proclamation signing, Tenorio encouraged community members to take part in the Pride Month activities and shared about his coming out. Wow. He said he may have come out of the closet a little later than I wanted to. I'm not going to go into this because, I kind of don't care. It kind of gets into personal information. I have more on this, but there's probably enough for today. I'll come back and pick it up a little bit tomorrow. I did have one article from the Philippines. President Duterte of the Philippines. Duterte, I cured myself of being gay. Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte said he used to be gay, but he cured himself by marrying beautiful women, claiming that drew an outrage from a human rights group. I'm sure it did, for anybody to say something like that. Whoa! That really takes the pressure off me. Yeah. Duterte said his ex-wife, Elizabeth Zimmerman, was the reason why. According to Rappler, Zimmerman was a flight attendant when they married in 1973. They split in 2000. Duterte's latest comments drew the ire of Gene Friedberg, the Human Rights Campaign's Director of Global Partnership. A Human Rights Campaign sounds like, well, yeah, I'd probably give to that because I'm in favor of human rights. But Human Rights Campaign is for human rights only for that select group, LGBTQ. Here's what she said. President Rodrigo Duterte's outrageous remarks are just another attempt to divert attention from his administration's long record against human rights. Friedberg said, instead of making insulting and nonsensical remarks about LGBTQ people and marginalized communities. Now, that's another one. Marginalized communities, right in there with identity politics. It's high time that he takes action to end the well-documented human rights abuses committed by government and security forces officials across the Philippines. Okay, I'm going to go on. I've had this on the card, this next item on the card for quite a while and never got down to it, but I think it's time since the real Joe Cruz is a dormer. Once a dormer, always a dormer, right? If you lived in a dorm when you were going to... Yeah, you are a dormer. Okay. This is Steve Dormer versus Robert Hoffman. And it's from a June 2 Daily Post article called Hazardous House Highlights Island-Wide Problem. And there's a picture here in the front. Sinahanya resident Steve Dormer has to deal with the smell of raw sewage that emanates from the abandoned house next door. The Guam Environmental Protection Agency has inspected the site and will issue a report soon. That's the caption under the picture. When businessman Steve Dormer moved into the house he built more than 4 years ago in Sinahanya, he was not expecting the house next door to become a thorn in his side. I am just so fed up. I've been living with this for so long, Dormer said. From the beginning, Dormer began noticing smells of septic waste. He soon realized that the house next door was flushing its sewage out of a pipe into the backyard. It headed right down to the ball field where the kids played, Dormer said. Adding to that were years' worth of trash Dormer estimates to be 4 to 5 feet deep. Step out to Dormer's back balcony and the scenic view is marred by an eyesore to the left, a house trashed from the inside out. This house is in such terrible shape, Sinahanya Mayor Robert Hoffman agreed. Hoffman said the original owner died around 2008 and did not legally deed the property to anyone. Well, he wouldn't be able to do that after he died, and when he dies, then the property is to be disposed of through what people refer to as probate. So Hoffman said the original owner died around 2008 and did not legally deed the property to anyone, though a relative was left to care for it. So for years, there was no owner to hold accountable. You can't cite a dead person, Hoffman said. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Hoffman, known by many as one of the island's can-do mayors, said a lengthy battle to resolve the issue began. Homeless people were given permission by the late owner's relative to reside on the property, which, according to Hoffman, made matters worse. They basically trashed the place. Hoffman was successful in removing junk cars from the front of the house. However, he said his office was between a rock and a hard place in dealing with the house. Maybe between a rock and a sewer pipe would have been a better analogy. Although he said the Department of Public Health and Social Services has issued notices of violation as far back as 2014 on the house. So you see the pattern beginning to develop here. We have a problem, and we have government agencies that kind of go through the motions, but the problem persists. The mayor said the house is part of a larger issue on Guam. Dilapidated residents that are possibly hazardous to public health. Well, if we have dilapidated residents that are possibly dilapidated or that are possibly hazardous to public health, wouldn't that be something that the mayors should be on, like white on rice? Isn't that the mayor's job? There are tons of residents like this throughout the island, Hoffman said. Parenthesis, therefore, you can't really point a finger at me because there are a lot more of them, too. It's not just me. He said that there are at least 10 other residents in Sinahanya that have been in a similar state of disrepair. For Dormer, the concerns about the impact of the house next door on his life have been eclipsed by concerns for the public at large. The ball field directly below his neighbor's house is currently part of a federal capital improvement project. I wouldn't want an enemy to go out on the ball field knowing that the sewage has been running down there for so long, Dormer said. The house, which was built in 1961, used to be a very nice house, according to Hoffman. And Hoffman has reason to think that resolution is on the horizon. Recently, an administrator for the residence was named and has paid the back taxes on the house and vowed to clean up the property. The Guam Environmental Protection Agency conducted an inspection on the house this month, and GEPA spokesman Nick Lee said the complaint report was completed by the agency's water control program and has been forwarded internally to GEPA's solid waste management program. So we're getting the paper shuffling really, really moving along here. But for all those like Dormer who have waited for years and are still waiting for a resolution, Hoffman said the bigger picture is Guam needs better laws in place to help mitigate this type of issue. Dormer said that he was packing up and he's going to move out of his house to the dorm at the University of Guam. Not really. I just ad-libbed that, real Joe Cruz. That Steve decided he was going to become a dormer again. Well, Robert, you mentioned the bigger picture. You know, Robert's constantly directing attention away from this village, from this house in his village, to the bigger picture. And what he says is Guam needs better laws in place. So I took a look at the law, and this is what I came up with. Chapter 20 GCA, Chapter 10. What is a nuisance? Anything which is injurious to the health or is indecent or offenses to the senses or an obstruction to free use of property so as to interfere with a comfortable enjoyment of life or property or unlawfully obstructs the free passage, use, etc., is a nuisance. A public nuisance is one which affects at the same time an entire community or neighborhood or any considerable number of persons, although the extent of the annoyance or damage inflicted upon individuals may be unequal. Does it sound like Dormer, the house next to Dormer, is a public nuisance? Well, then we've got Chapter 23 of 2021 GCA, and this is what it says. An action may be brought by any person whose property is injuriously affected or whose personal enjoyment is lessened by a nuisance as the same as defined in what I just read. Remedies, and by judgment in such action, the nuisance may be enjoined or abated, as well as damages recovered therefore. A civil action may be brought in the name of the government of Guam to abate a nuisance as the same as identified in 20 GCA by the Attorney General. So there you are. So the Attorney General can bring suit to abate a nuisance. How do we know that it's a nuisance? Well, there are all these citations and all the rest of this stuff. Pretty good threshold for a suit to abate a nuisance. I think you could probably use the nose test, and according to Dormer here, and pretty quickly conclude that we have a public nuisance here. So Robert Hoffman said the bigger picture is Guam needs better laws in place to help mitigate this type of issue. Robert, it's right here. 21 GCA, Chapter 23, Actions for Nuisance. So the Attorney General has the ability to come in and sue and abate that nuisance. Now, this gets us to, as I would say, the bigger picture. Bob's bigger picture. Bob's bigger picture is something that I harp about all the time. What is the nature of the position of village mayor? What do we expect from our mayors? Let's see. We expect them to sit in the mayor's council, which is kind of a quasi-parliamentary body. They can vote for the president, like Melissa Savaris, who will tell us who has a real talent for noting what the news, what media has exaggerated. That's a big part of it. A village mayor, of course, has to participate in awarding the of gambling tickets or gambling franchises to people at the carnival. A village mayor's got to take junkets like the Strawberry Festival and the other junkets that the village mayors have taken. These are the things that we have grown to expect from village mayors. We don't expect them to mow the lawns at the schools. They're too busy for that. we don't expect them to try to catch people who have been littering in their village. They've told us in no uncertain terms that's not a good use of their time. They're too busy. That's what we've grown to expect. This is my expectation from the village mayor. They're going to have to wait for a few minutes. I'm going to wrap up the show with my expectation for village mayors.
We know too well the inconvenience of not having power after a storm. You worry about the food in the freezer going bad. Nights get hot. It's hard finding comfort when going to sleep. These are realities. But with solar and battery storage from Micronesia Renewable Energy, these realities can be a thing of the past. The solar works during the day and the batteries power your home at night. Call 632-2613 to see how solar plus battery storage can make life a little more convenient. MRE, the smarter choice.
Let's go for a drive.
Let's take a stroll.
Let's gallivant.
Let's go cruising.
We all have different ways to describe how we get up and go in our cars. But whatever you may call it, you can do more of it when you save 6% off your fuel purchases at any Shell station when you use your eligible Bank of Guam Visa and MasterCard credit cards. So stop by any Guam or CNMI Shell station and start saving today. Visit bankofguam.com for more information. Terms and conditions apply. Bank of Guam, the People's Bank. Member FDIC.
Okay, so I just went down the laundry list of what we know, what our expectations of mayors are by what we've been observing over the last few years. And now I'm going to share with you what I think the village mayors ought to be doing. One, they are the only official of the government stationed in my village. If the government of Guam has a presence in my village, it's the village mayor. I would expect my village mayor to be on top of what's going on in my village. I'll give you an example. We had the Jaff Road from Dadido to Jigo for years and years and years. What did the village mayor do about the Jaff Road? I don't know. But later on, the Department of Public Works came along and patched the Jaff. That lasted about 3 months. The patch came off and new Jaff developed. So finally, the Department of Public Works did what it should have done in the beginning, mill and replace. They milled off all the old top layer and put a new layer on. We have a fine road now between Dadido and Jigo. I would have expected my mayor to be at the Department of Public Works pounding on the director's desk saying, fix that road. I would have expected him to be, Rudy Matanani's our mayor. I would have expected them to be the advocate for our village with the rest of the government of Guam. When there are street lights that don't work, it's the mayor. You have to make a report to the mayor, and the mayor works with the power authority to get the street light turned back on. That is, if you can get anybody at the mayor's office to answer the phone. And once again, that isn't really a priority for the mayor's office. With respect to Steve Dormer's situation, you know, Robert Hoffman is talking about, well, what we need is laws. Well, the laws are there, Robert. And if this has been going on for this long and you've got 10 other places in your village that fit into the same category, wouldn't it make sense for you to go to the Attorney General and say, hey, look, I've identified these properties in my village, and they're public nuisances, and I've got copies of documentation from various government agencies, EPA and public health, etc., that you could use if you want to bring a suit to us to abate that public nuisance. And I really want you to do that, because this is a serious health hazard in my village. Wouldn't that be a responsible thing for a mayor to do, instead of saying, well, you know, what we need is better laws and You know, it's all over. It's not just here. It's all over. And I got a lot of them. And it's going to get better. I would expect a village mayor to be the champion for his village, to be the lobbyist for his village, and to go down and lobby government officials to get what his village needs. And this Steve Dormer case here is a classic example of where a mayor could have made a lot of difference by going to the Attorney General and asking the Attorney General, will you please abate this nuisance? Now, I can anticipate this. Well, you know, the AG's busy. Maybe he won't do it. Well, how much does it hurt to ask? And how bad an idea would it be if you have to write a public letter to the Attorney General describing the nuisance that you want abated? Because it looks like Steve Dormer's situation here in Santa Ana has been going on for 4 years, and no one paid any attention to it until it appeared on the front page of the Post. Now people are interested in it. So if mayors can't do that, then why do we need mayors? I've already ruled against the carnival and the gambling and all that stuff. Senator Talina Nelson had a great idea. Let the Visitors Bureau do the carnival. We don't need the Mayor's Council to do that. Mayor's Council was to do rules and regulations. My prediction was, of all of the commissions on island, commissions or whatever, I couldn't think of a more inept one than that. And it took them 3 cracks to do it. And then Angel Sablon says, well, yeah, we were going to put this part in there where we could identify the people that were backing the bidders, but it didn't make it in the final edition. It just one screw up after another. So I'm really glad that Steve Dormer came forward, because it's the kind of peg that we can use to hang the bag of expectations for mayors on. Now, I have high expectations for mayors. Mayors now are some of the highest paid people in the government. You remember how the senators gave them a pretty substantial raise at the same time they got their own, and then they got cornered into taking theirs away, but they didn't have the courage to reduce the mayor's salaries apace. So that's what I would expect from mayors. I would expect mayors to be concerned about car thefts of anyone in his village. It doesn't necessarily have to be his car or his granddaughter's car before the mayor is concerned. So let's think very seriously about doing away with the mayor's council, requiring the mayors to stay in their villages and work on behalf of the people in their village, using this Dormer case as the primary example. Well, it's going to be tough, but the real Joe Cruz and I are not going to be doing tall tales for 2 days. We'll stumble through it, and we'll be back on Monday at 4 o'clock. Can't wait to get back and see you then.